Start. Yeah.
Hi. Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to the language workshop. So today we will be talking briefly about development of language, and mainly we'll be stressing on presentations that we show once the child has moved on to the primary classroom. Hi. So for those of you who are listening in on Zoom, it might be a little hard for you to actually see the material when we show it, but I hope you can manage. And for those of you who are physically present, of course, it won't be a problem. All right. So let me start by first just talking in general about language. We all know that as children, we keep saying that the child has an absorbent mind, right? That's something you've heard throughout, and especially in Montessori environments. Now, when we talk about this absorbent mind, we actually stress on what the child is really absorbs from the environment. And what they actually absorb is language, movements, and behavior patterns. So basically, they absorb things, or rather, human characteristics that are in the environment. And later on, of course, that will help them to adapt and be a part of society, right? Because we all need to behave in a way that is acceptable to us. Man is a social animal, we all know that. So when we talk about movements and behavior patterns, obviously those are picked up once the child is out of the womb. While the child is moving within the womb itself, the fact that the child chooses to stand upright and walk, or the fact that the child will adopt mannerisms from the environment. For example, the way we eat with a fork and knife, or if they're in a home where they eat with their hands, that's the kind of behavior they will adapt. Language, on the other hand, starts very early, because right from the time the child is around 7 or 8 months in the womb itself, and the mom is still pregnant, the walls of the uterus and the stomach thin out, and also the brain development to take in sounds starts. So, which is why often doctors do recommend, or educationists say, that we should read to babies even when we are pregnant and things like that. So that is the initial phase of development of language that starts. And then, of course, it carries on right on to the time the child is around 5 years of age, where they are really, we say they have a sensitive period for language. So this whole period from about 7 months in the womb right on to around 5 or 6 years is when the child is intensely picking up language. After that, of course, we're just building up on it, or of course, learning new languages, right? So when we talk about language, yes, it is a means of communication, but it is more complex, because like a baby can cry, and that is also a way of communicating or being able to tell you what they want. But language involves symbols, right? It actually involves symbols that, when joined together, they should make certain sounds, and it should be, we have words that are specific to certain objects. Like, for example, these are spectacles, and now that is universally accepted uh, by people speaking English. So these are things we associated specifically with different objects, and that is part of learning a language. Language is not synonymous with thoughts. Babies can think much before they can speak, right? You can see how very often, even when you carry your baby, they will intently look at you and they seem to know what's going on, even though they haven't developed speech as yet. So it's very important at all these points of time, right from the time, if any of you have really tiny babies or plan on having a second one or third one, these are just things that to keep in mind, because obviously the child is absorbing language from a very, very early stage. Another thing, of course, that's very important for the development of language is the kind of environment that the child is exposed to, right? So they will pick up naturally whatever language is being spoken in that setup. Now, the key things, of course, that we must remember for the child is firstly, to acquire language, the child's auditory sense should be good or functioning normally. So we have the auditory apparatus, or the auditory receptive centers, which basically is not just your ear, but also the brain's development and being able to take in this information and sounds and things. Now, as long as there is no problem, with their hearing or anything involved in that process, the child will be able to pick up the sounds or the language that is spoken in that environment. It is very important, and please, this is something I think especially mothers of young children and toddlers should know. If your child has repeated earaches, ear infections, you know how many constantly the teachers keep sending back children when they have a bad cold, when there's a lot of mucus and things. Also, if for a very long period of time you find they are unable to walk very steadily, right? The ears also are involved in balance. So these are things to be very mindful of. So when teachers, especially since our environments and even now our homes mostly have air conditioning, when the child gets a cold, very often that goes on for a long time. And some children have a very high tolerance to pain. So they don't often complain of earaches. But doctors or pediatricians, especially those working with young children, will always check their ears when they check them. So it's important to do these checkups, to keep testing them. Especially when you find this repeated colds and coughs and things, to make sure that their hearing is okay. Because remember that period of really intensely grasping language is only between that 7 months and 5 years. So it's very important that they get the right sounds and they're able to take in information correctly. The next part, of course, is their ability to speak. So you have auditory receptive and then you have sensory motor. Your vocal apparatus, which is everything involved with the mouth and the throat, the tongue, etc. So now if a child is taken in sounds clearly, and especially if the language in the environment is rich, if there are a lot of people speaking to the child is naturally motivated to want to speak. And this triggers or kind of motivates all the other parts of the mouth to make movements necessary to actually sound out those words, to verbalize something or vocalize something. So children may have, mild issues. Of course, speaking also is a process. There are certain sounds that they are easier to say. There are many children who find letters like R and L a little more difficult. So certain sounds are taken in a bit later. It's not that they won't learn it. Sometimes there may be mild, issues and things, and that usually can be overcome with the required help. At the same time, it is very important for, I think, parents and toddler teachers, especially, people working with young children, to be very mindful of all of these things. Because this is the age when, if we pick it up early, we can work on it in a very natural way. And then, of course, give them the right help at the right time, if required. So other than the vocal, of course, things also, what is really important, as I said, is the language environment. So the richer the language that comes in, the richer the language that the child will express later. So it's very important that as parents and as educationists, we give them all of that. So even when we speak in sentences, using adjectives, nouns, things clearly to indicate longer sentences sometimes. So your child will, of course, when they're initially speaking, they will speak, when they start speaking those first words, it's usually just a noun. So they will say water, for example, right? But you have to be the one to say, oh, would you like a glass of water? Let's get it from here. And you can use, oh, it's really hot. Or let's take it from the tap. Let's be careful we don't spill, things like that. There's a lot of vocabulary that you can give around whatever you are doing. And a large part of what toddler teachers do or what happens in the toddler classroom is a lot of oral speech. And this, of course, continues into the primary as well, where the child is encouraged to speak in full sentences. At the same time, it's never that we demean the child in any way or create any sort of negativity around that. So if a child doesn't use the proper word or the correct word that is required, we will just say the correct sound. We won't say, hey, you said that wrong. That's not the way to say it. If the child says otter, we'll say, oh, you mean you would like a glass of water? So we just stress on the right sound. So the child now is more encouraged to speak in the environment. Also, other than just the environment, it has to be the child's desire to speak as well. Remember that children enjoy speaking when they know there is somebody ready to listen to them. So if we as parents and as teachers are physically present with them, maintaining eye contact, Bina and I both in many workshops, we always stress the importance of, a primary caregiver being around. So even if it is a grandparent, but somebody from the family actually being around to speak to the child and converse, because as a parent, that comes very naturally to you to have a discussion about something, to smile, to joke. There's a lot of love associated in and excitement. Like I know it's a mother recently I met told me, my in-laws told me that my child said mama and I missed it. I wasn't at home because the mom had gone out to work and the child asked for the mom. And she was like, oh, I missed it. But the grandparents were so excited and they called the mom and things like that. So these are things when it's home people, you're always encouraged and happy to do it. Now, sometimes what happens is in today's time, because we have a lot of help in the house, uh, children may speak later or may not be able to articulate as well. Because of course, their language may not be perfect, and at the same time, because they usually anticipate, there's a routine established in the household, and they know that this time the child has to have this meal or water or something. It is given to them. The help preempts that situation and it is provided to them without the child needing to ask. So, a lot of times the children don't actually need to sound out the words, even though they've taken in all the vocabulary required. So that's where, even if you have an older sibling, the child has an older sibling that is a bit dominant, always make sure you have time for the younger one as well to get opportunities to speak and talk. Because there are a lot of families where the older child speaks really well, and we know that in the household, the language is excellent. But the younger child is choosing not to speak. For whatever reason, they are very quiet, whether it's in the classroom or sometimes even in the home. And that's usually because, the older one tends to do things beforehand or it's just faster at saying that. So these are things, again, to be a bit mindful of. In some cases, of course, if, you cannot help it, like if a child is constantly, I think, facing a kind of wall, when they're trying to speak. And I know, like in the old school times, there were people who actually said a child is not supposed to be seen and heard. And they were literally not encouraged to be around or have an opinion. Now, in those cases, or, if any families are still following that kind of tradition, again, the child is not really motivated to speak. So please make sure that, when the child is coming to you with something, you are spending that time and actually sitting down in front of them to let them vocalize and verbalize whatever they have to say. Very important part. If you want the child to speak, there should be somebody willing to listen. Okay. So now we'll go on to the actual presentations. And then, of course, please, for everyone, whether it's on Zoom or here, we'll take questions at the end. So we'll go through the phonetic sound. So in the Montessori environment, we use phonetics. I think most schools, even now today, are doing that. We usually introduce sounds by playing the I Spy game, which I will show you. But I will just go through the sounds first because I think most of you are new to this. So we had sent most of you a soft copy. I think everyone received it of a sound list. And I'll just read out the sounds right now. So the line on the top, which is I spy with my little eye, something that starts with, is usually what we use when we play the game. But first, I'll just go through the sounds. So for the letter A or the alphabet A, we say an, as in an. For B, it is b, b, as in tub. So it's a very soft sound, just. And usually the child is very close to us when we present the activity. I know those of you on Zoom, it's difficult for me to sound it out that loud. So basically, we are not saying burr, like as it's B-E-R, but it's just, okay. We have k, as in tick, as in lid. So again, like the B is pronounced very softly, like D is the same way. E as in egg, as in if. So again, it's not per, it's so difficult. As in if. Just avoid the sound at the end of everything, basically.
Not elongated.
Yes, don't, yes, don't.
Usually, all the consonants have, you take it as the last sound of the word. And the vowels are the first sound.
Okay.
Like in most cases, it would follow like the first. So like a as in am, where you hear the a in the first sound of the word, but tub, where b is the last. Yeah. So g as in mug, p as in hut. So again, it's g,
Not girl.
yes, p as in hut, as in jug, g, as in look. So C and K are pronounced in exactly the same way. Sorry? Egg. Egg.
Egg.
E, sorry, yeah. E as in ink.
Okay.
Yes, I, yeah, sorry. E as in ink and J as in jug. K as in look. So again, it's the same as C. As in full. So like as in lamp or full.
But you don't do that when you say the.
So we say lamp. So what's the first sound you hear when I say the word lamp? Lamp. So the child says because otherwise when they spell it out, they will write L-E-R or L and U. Because the U sound is actually as in up. So they will spell it as L-U instead of just so, yeah, please catch me privately if you want a private session on phonics in the office already. I sit at the middle office. If I'm not singing, I'm usually there. So you can come and do a proper lesson. As in am, as in in. So again, it's not m and no. It's just and or as in on. Vowels are easier usually. So your P is again as in up. Now, for the letter Q, because it's usually followed by a U, we have it as a phonogram. So it's qu as in queen. Qu. R as in run. So again, it's r as in run. S as in toss. Just not so. Okay. As in mat. As in up. So the sound is U for us, right? As in up. B as in move. B. So for we bite our lip. And for W, it is w as in wind or watch. And B for ban, ban. As an ox. So this is more like an S and K together. As in ox. Yeah, as in yet. Yeah. As in quiz. Yes. Now for the phonograms, which are usually, you'll have two sounds that together make a sound that sounds different. So you have sh as in push. Ch as in much. E as in eel. U as in boot. U as in blue. As in song. As in fern. So that's again your sound. Yeah. R as in car. A as in nail. O as in goat. Ow as in cloud. As in moth. I as in tie, and oi as in boy. Okay.
Sounds for.
Sorry? Oh, yes, like fork. Yeah. So, of course, with the children, they will pick it up naturally as we play games. And the game that we play with them, for them, all our activities are work. We call it the I Spy game. That is the name that we even use in the classroom. So basically, we have a box or a basket with various objects. They're not pictures, they're actual objects. So, for example, this is the carpet, apple, chair, elephant, pot, brush, rabbit. So we have a lots of objects, and we have 2 or 3, or sometimes even 4 boxes that we use. And when we play this game, we usually have a small group of children sitting. The group would be usually a mixed age group. So there will be some children who are just moved into the primary classroom, like around 2.5 or so. And there would be even probably a 5-year-old sitting for the same presentation. So it's something that is done every day in the classroom at any point of time. So we first name all the objects as we lay it down. And now for a very young child, I might pick up just one object. For example, this is an apple. I spy something with my little eye, something on the chalky. Now this table is referred to as a chalky. That starts with ah, ah. So the child looks around. Because we've sort of focused on one object, the child might say apple. Right? If they don't say it also, you can say, I hear a in apple. So what is the first sound that you hear when I say apple? The first sound that we hear is a. Do you also hear a when I say apple? So even if the child doesn't respond, you create a conversation around it, and you make sure you give them the letter. Most children within 2 or 3 turns will say the sound. Okay? So they will say a. And then we reiterate, yes, the first sound we heard when I said apple is a. Now, for another child who's been around and is used to it, we might put 2 or 3 objects and still ask for the first sound. And slowly we want to get the child to the point where they are able to hear all the sounds in the word. Now, it's always easier to hear the first and last sound. So, for example, if I say, I spy something, this is a brush, for example. This is a brush and this is an elephant. I spy something with my little eye, something on the table or on the chalky that ends with sh. So the child will look. There's elephant and there's brush. We usually take 2 things that are absolutely contrasting. And the child says brush. Yes. So the last sound we heard when I said brush is sh. And then we'll ask them, what is the first sound you heard when I said brush? So the child might say, do you hear any other sounds in brush? So the child might say, brush. Right? So that's how we slowly get them. The older children will, of course, we can give them the entire lot of objects and we'll make them choose, and then we'll ask them for all the sounds. So once the child gets enough practice where we realize that they are familiar with the sounds in the word, parallelly, we are also trying to introduce, so this is the auditory sense we are dealing with, right? They're able to hear the sounds, they're visually associated with objects in the environment. Now we have to get them to recognize the symbols of these sounds. So we will start with sandpaper letters. And we usually start with the vowels. So your children who are transitioned to primary or who are in the primary will call them blue sounds, pink sounds, green sounds. But the blue sounds are basically all the vowels. They're printed on blue cards. You have the consonants, all the other letters of the alphabet, which are printed on these pink cards. And then we have phonograms, which are on green cards. Actually, I've forgotten to get one down. There is one there? Yeah. So I'll show it to you when we move on. So the phonograms, which they learn later, are on a green board like this. So we usually start with just 2 sounds, the vowels, and we have 2 contrasting looking sounds and sounding. They sound different as well. So if I introduce this to the child, we usually place it on the table. The child is free to use whatever hand. The letters written in the middle or printed out or pasted in the middle. The letter is made out of sandpaper. Okay. So it's the smoothest sandpaper that you find. And we show it to the child and we say, this is A. And we trace it. The child usually sits on the left-hand side of us. A. And we can show to the child will naturally take it and try to trace it. Initially, of course, they will just do this. We try and make them more conscious of tracing it in the appropriate manner, but we will not stop the child from doing the activity and go on nagging them, especially when they first start out. And we can also give them examples like, when I say the word mat, do you hear this? When I say mat, or when I say apple, can you hear this? When I say apple. Now remember, they've already had practice with the I Spy game, so they're familiar with the phonic sounds. Now we can introduce another contrasting one. This is E. E. We usually stress on the sound when we do the last thing, the dot, right? So E. So the child now has seen these two sounds, so A and E. So this is the first, what we call the first period of the activity, which is mainly introducing the child to that sound. Now we have the second phase of the activity, which is trying to get the child to master that sound or become more familiar with it. So it's almost like a game where we dodge the child. So if Veena is my child, can you find A? Can you pick up A? Could you trace A? Okay. Could you pick up E? Can you hide E? Could you give me E? Could you take E back from me? Could you place it down? Can you trace E? E, E. Could you trace A? Could you give me E? Thank you. So we keep on playing games like this, and we will, after every bit, we try and get the child to trace the letter. So basically what we are doing is helping the child to master this sound in 3 ways. So visually, the child can see that this is A and recognize it. The child can also hear it. We are catering to the auditory sense where we keep saying, give me A, trace A, put A down, hide A, etc. And the third sense, which is the muscular memory or the kinesthetic sense, where we keep saying trace. Now, what happens is the child may be very young. They may be 2.5, 3, depending on how, whenever the teacher feels the child is ready. But what happens is the child has already got the muscular memory of what it is to make that shape of the letter. They can recognize it and they can trace the shape. This is really big. Eventually, they will have to make it small and be able to have that pencil grip to write it in their books. But they have mastered that shape. And we always say the muscular memory or that kinesthetic sense is something that is most ingrained in us, right? We never forget things that we've actually felt or touched in that moment, right? Like if I'm mean to you, you will say, I can forget what she said to me, but I will never forget how she made me feel. So that sense is something that is extremely enduring, right? That sense of touch or how someone makes you feel, what you have felt. It also is very important for small children, I think, who are highly sensory, and it really helps them develop concentration and concentrate better, right? Like work experience. You can have all the theory in the world, but when you actually work on something, that's when you master it. So that's why in Montessori environments, I think it is really helpful for children. And even if the other senses are slightly lacking or there are problems with, their auditory sense or in terms of articulation, this at least provides one more opportunity for them. Okay. So that's I Spy and sandpaper letters. Now, again, as we've said, they've moved on from being able to hear the sounds and then also to recognize them in the sandpaper letters. Now, we don't wait for them to master all the letters. As soon as the child knows the vowels and the child is able to recognize at least 7 to 8 of the other letters, we move them onto what we call the movable alphabet. So this game is, I think we have to change the
This with the lowercase letters.
Yes. So usually what happens is that at this stage, because the child is highly sensory and they have a natural instinct to work on these materials, they are able to master more complex movements. So when we introduce something that is more difficult, like the cursive letters first, this is the age where they are actually more open to grasping them. Otherwise, when we start with capitals, which are just simple lines, and then they feel I don't need to learn the cursive. Yeah. And we still feel writing is important even in the world of AI and technology. So, all right. So I think all of you on Zoom as well, we have a box. Now, basically, the box contains letters of the alphabet. They're cut out letters. I think you're also getting a mirror image now. So these are cut out letters of the alphabet. And like the sandpaper letters, the vowels are in blue and the consonants or the other letters of the alphabet are in pink. So now this is the child's first experience of what we like to call writing. Writing is simply being able to express yourself graphically, right? Writing with a pencil is mastery of different things. But as long as they can express themselves, yeah. Okay, so I'll do it on this. So we have what we call a banded mat, which is like the red and blue lines that the child uses in the first writing books that they normally use. So here, obviously the child has had quite a bit of practice with the I Spy and sandpaper letters. So we will tell the child, we say, we've been used to listening to the sounds in a word. And today, let's try and recognize the sounds in a word from the beginning to the end, from the first sound to the last sound, one after the other. So let's make a word. So sometimes we would let the child make a word, but usually we try and sometimes start it ourselves because we want it to be a phonetic word initially for them to be able to spell, right? So I'm going to make the word mat. What's the first sound you hear when I say the word mat? Mat. So the child says, mm. Remember, they're quite adept now at recognizing the first sound. Let's place this mat, this mm. After this what sound do you hear when I say mat? Mat. So now the child may say at. In case they don't, because sometimes initially that middle sound is a little difficult for them, then I'll say, I hear and after this when I say mat. Do you also hear this and? And then the child may pick up the letter because they can recognize it and they will place it. And they realize that, okay, because we heard it after this, we place it this side. After this at, what sound do you hear when I say mat? Mat. Now we won't, sort of make it so elongated or anything that it loses the context of the word or it sounds completely different. What sound do you hear after this at when I say mat? Again, the last sound is usually easy, so they pick it up and we show them where to place it. And now they can see, the difference in the letters when we place them down. The bit is a longer letter. Yeah. Mat. After this, what sound do you hear when I say mat? The child will think, then they might say nothing. So we have heard all the sounds in mat. We don't make the child read the word. We just keep spelling out words. And it's not restricted to 3-letter words or anything. So they might make a word like stamp, stamp or insect, so which is also phonetic. So they just listen to the sounds and they place the sounds down correctly. And initially, of course, even when they start working on their own, they will spell phonetically. So we don't correct them at all at this point of time if they are spelling words phonetically.
Can you give an example of that?
So a word like
Chocolate.
chocolate.
Okay.
So ch or k is lit. Lit. They will spell it as right lit. That's chocolate.
Also is.
Yeah, and they might just use one. One letter. Like if there's a word like which has like chicken.
Hmm.
Or
So they won't use.
yeah,
the same, but just-
yeah, they'll just use any
Yeah.
letter. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they will use what they want. Um, so that's how they would spell out words. And so sometimes we just say like, yeah, as they go along, we'll say, we use this. So sometimes they say cat call and kitten call, which is how children, or we say this, we use this call. So sometimes they call it small and big also. But eventually they get the hang of it. And when they do work later with reading folders and reading material, then they come across the letters and slowly learn how to spell correctly. So usually before 5, we don't sort of stress if they are spelling phonetically. After 5, we sometimes try and introduce the correct spelling to them. And by that time, because most of the children have started at least simple reading, they also come across more words and are more intuitive about all
They're
these things.
discouraged if we continuously correct their
Yeah.
spellings. Want them to just explore this field.
So that's the movable alphabet. So that, as I said, was just expressing themselves graphically, but we consider it as writing.
They also write phrases on this banded mat.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they would make words like using even material in the environment. So they might write red rods or pink tower, things like that in using material in the environment. So what they see, they are encouraged to write. And we always allow them to write their own words, because writing is actually, it's more like self-expression. So that's something that children love to do. They like to make their own words. So sometimes they will say we want to write all cricket words or all, depending on whatever their interest is at the moment. But we don't want to discourage them in any way. Now, before we start actually making them write letters of the alphabet in a writing book or something, which is like your red and blue line books, we have an activity, what we call the drawing metal insets. So some of your children, when they get older, around 3.5, 4, may start saying, you as a parent would be very anxious as to whether they've started writing, because your friends who have children in regular schools will be writing. And our children, of course, are making phrases and words with the movable alphabet, but very often as a parent, you don't think that is appropriate. But they will be learning how to write with a pencil. It is something that they will do at Harmony. It may be at only 3.5 or 4, but it is done. Now, initially, what we do is that we don't want the child to be kind of put off by just monotonously writing letters of the alphabet. So when we did it in school, we wrote, say, pages of the letter A or ABC, right? We went on to 2-letter words, 3-letter words. They will have to learn that, but to get that initial boost into actually being able to write with a pencil, please remember that they are all right from the toddler level, they are painting and coloring. So it's not that they don't have the motor coordination, but for them to physically be able to have developed that concentration that is required in actually making those shapes of the letters of the alphabet, they need to have a certain mastery. So we have this activity called the drawing metal inset. So it's basically a frame like this, and you have a metal, it's made out of metal, and inset that fits in. So we have different shapes. So we have like an oval, an ellipse, you'll have rectangles, square, triangle, etc. We initially start with the oval shape. And what the child does is first they will put the frame down, right? So they'll bring the activity, and just the frame is placed on a blank paper. Now the child, we will choose a pencil when we are presenting, of course. So say if the child chooses which color we want to do first, and we choose the brown, for example. We show them the pencil grip. So the child is usually sitting on my left. So very slowly, we show them the finger movements that we use to hold the pencil. And we will trace this frame starting from the top in an anti-clockwise direction. So we start from the top. This is where I start. I've gone all around and I've stopped at exactly the point that I started from. Okay, so the child has made this shape. Put the pencil back. We'll remove the frame. So you will get this, right? Just an oval shape. I don't know whether it's too light. We actually encourage the child to do everything lightly because we want them to develop the lightness of touch. So which is why these color pencils are used and not a dark felt pen. Right? Now we have to place the inset, which is the oval shape, exactly over this in a way that they should not be able to see the line that we have drawn, right? That oval shape that we do initially. Again, the child is usually on our left side. We will hold the inset down with our left hand. And this time, when we trace, the child is also shown again the pencil grip. Sorry, my inset is shaking a lot. And we start from in the opposite way. So now we'll start from the point nearest to me in the middle, and we go in a clockwise direction. Now, sorry, it's a bit shaky here, but usually what will happen is that we get a double line. Okay, so there's a gap between the lines. And if it's done very carefully, like our pencils are properly sharpened and all, you'll get an even line throughout, more or less an even line. Okay, so basically, what we've done here is that we're encouraging the child to go in clockwise and anti-clockwise directions. If you see most of the shapes of your letters, if you're writing C, A, your cursive letters involve that movement, right? So the child, by doing these insets, is getting a lot of practice. At the same time, they're attracted towards these geometric shapes. And for them, the activity is like coloring, color pencils. It looks nice. Now, we go to the next step where the child has taken the pencil. Again, the pencil grip is shown. Of course, when the first presentation, it's the adult, sorry, who's presenting. And we make straight lines. Now, the lines that we make have to be from this lower line. So that gap, I don't know whether you can see, there's a tiny gap between the two lines. And we don't go across that inner line. So again, the child will trace, and when we do it, we are making straight lines very close to each other. Now remember, it's not like coloring. We're starting, look where I start. Look where I stop. I'm doing it very light. Okay, we're trying to give them that lightness of touch. And we tell the child, can you see how close I've made the lines? So that basically we're trying to show that we don't see much of the paper inside, right? Because once they've started coloring in these straight lines or making those patterns, there's no gap. Now, of course, the first few, in fact, sometimes for a good few months, when your child brings home these papers, they will be like this. 4 or 5 lines. Okay, that's how when children start, they will bring the activity home like this. Please do not discourage them in any way just because you have attended the workshop and are now aware. The teachers obviously do tell them that let's try and do it even closer next time. So that we shouldn't see these gaps between the paper. Okay, so these are just gentle ways in which we make them do these shapes. And so this is like one which is completely done. And later on, we have lots of different shapes. As the children gain mastery, remember they've started this activity at around maybe 3.5 or 4. But they're in that environment until the age of almost 6. And even the 6-year-olds enjoy doing these activities, but they will do different designs and patterns. They will take 2 or 3 triangles. Oh, sorry. So they start making designs and patterns using the shapes and tracing. So even the activities that we have don't just excite the child during that phase when they're just trying to learn something, but there is always something more to do. So they're constantly interested. And even when we want to give them writing practice, it is not only just letters of the alphabet. They have things that they can write. There are things that they can draw. And this requires a lot of concentration. Like my hand was also shaking when I'm, doing the activity. To get that exact gap is very difficult. So even for the children, it requires deep concentration and they spend a lot of time. And when we make those straight lines, so we usually start with an oval or an ellipse shape because the gap is smaller. But when they do like a square or something, they have to make much longer lines, because the square would be like this big. And then they have to make really long lines and to keep doing it close to each other because we're not allowing them to just color, right? So it's not scribbling. It's actually making, and we keep reiterating, this is where I start, this is where I stop. So that ability to be able to move your fingers or your hand within the space of those writing lines, like your banded mat, is something that the child has to develop, right? Those vertical movements, those horizontal movements, writing within the lines, the lightness of touch. Because remember that when we work or when we write, you are using all of these muscles. So it's not just your finger grip, but this hold, the wrist, the agility of the wrist, the fact that your whole arm, your whole forearm should be able to move quickly. So you use a lot. So when children, it's not that they just don't like to write. It does take them some time. They need to gain a lot of mastery. And that's why all the activities that we do in toddlers, the practical life activities, the sensorial activities, all help them to gain this lightness of touch and this mastery. So that when they finally have tried, remember that writing usually comes properly writing with a pencil only after 4 in most cases. It comes only after 4. Some children 3.5. With the girls, sometimes they pick up faster because they're more interested. But otherwise, it's usually after 4. And to get to that phase where they've developed enough concentration and this mastery takes them some time. But all these preliminary activities that they do really help them to reach that space and then enjoy the activity. So now it's no longer boring when I'm just doing letters of the alphabet.
Should you hand them a pencil like before 3.5? Is that you don't encourage that?
No, it's not
They
that they're
do
not
scribble.
they're doing a lot of scribbling, coloring, drawing. So that is absolutely if they have the, if they hold, because also sometimes with many children, they tend to be ambidextrous for a long time. So we don't really know which hand they eventually choose for writing. So it's nice if they do get opportunities to just hold a pencil, but then you shouldn't be stressing that hold it with this hand, because right now, sometimes even they don't know which hand they are more comfortable with. Like we've had children in the classroom who, when they write on this side of the page, they use this hand, and this side of the page, they use this hand. It's just something that they feel works. So these are just things that to be mindful of. And when the child is usually around 4 is when they also choose the hand that is more steady for them to make certain movements. Like there are some children who will write with one hand and do everything else with the other hand.
Yeah.
So that is also something to be aware of.
Also, the way they hold the pen, they figure it out, right?
They'll figure it out. Yeah. So sometimes if the
correct,
grip is very off, we do, tend to show them
Okay.
the pencil grip. And even with the activities that they do with, if you see a lot of our toddler puzzles have those little knobs. So even the teachers often analyze their movements or slow down the movements for that. Of course, a child may still choose to do, hold the pencil in different ways. I think my son holds the pencil with these 2 fingers. And then like now but this is the main grip for some strange reason. He's 6.5. And even though all of us, it's the one household where I think everybody writes, like actually writes. We don't use computers or anything. So if you see, most of my notes will be handwritten.
Some children write.
Yeah, like this. And also then there's this grip that some use. As long as they're able to eventually write, and if they're writing in today's day and age, I think it's good.
Yeah.
But we do try. The teachers do try and tell them, like, because sometimes the speed and all, the lightness of touch, or if they don't hold the pencil too low down, they're able to see the letters more clearly as well. But again, with the child, we don't know what they're going through, right? Today, a lot of children have problems with their eyes, which go unnoticed sometimes, especially in a one-on-one setup. Like sometimes in Montessori environments also, because we are working one-on-one, the child has a certain amount of support. But in certain schools, when they're only reading from a board, it would probably be caught on faster.
Yeah.
So these are things as parents, just be vigilant. If you feel like there's something a little off, you can always take them for a checkup or a test. And like my son did tell me that, Mama, why do you write so light? And I immediately took him for a test when he said that. And then I realized he did have a number. Because he said, why do you write so light on the paper? So there are certain things that children may say to you, and it's important, like I think as a parent, to also be vigilant. The teachers, of course, if they notice anything, will definitely keep you informed. So things like eye checkups, ear checkups, speech at the right time, please be very mindful. Okay, so we've talked about, writing and moving on to the pencil, and of course, letters of the alphabet and everything start slowly. Now, the first activity for reading that we do is, we call it the object. So it's again, this is the object box 1. It's a box which has objects in it. So like your I Spy game. And again, it's actual objects and not pictures. So this is a gift box, lid, dog, pig, clip. Yeah, so we'll take out some of the objects of all the objects that we have. Now, these are all objects that can be spelt phonetically. So they're tiny objects like this. Okay. Now, the way we play this activity or this game is, I would tell the child, I'm thinking of one of these objects. Could you tell me which one I'm thinking of? Gift? No, that's not the one I'm thinking of. Pig? No. Let me give you a clue. So now, on a piece of paper, I'll write the name of another object. Okay, so because she said gift and pig, I will choose maybe another one. Okay, so I've written lid, and I've written it in the cursive script. Okay, because that's what she's used to say. Can you try reading this? So I'm covering the other sound. So she's reading one sound at a time. Okay, so I'm only showing her the L. Can you see it still faster? Lid, yes. And can you place it with the object? Okay. So now she's identified lid. And because obviously the object is there, it's easier to associate, right? So when she's saying lid, and they get very excited once they've been able to actually identify the object. So in the same way, we will keep doing, letting the child associate all the objects, right? So they will read it out. We will write it out in the same way. Can you think which one I'm thinking of? I'm going to give you a clue again. I'm writing it down. We cover each letter. So the child sounds out each letter and then we say still faster. Can you say it faster? And when they are able to actually fuse the word together, those sounds together to make a word, they now are able to associate it. So what happens is that in this whole presentation, we are trying to also give the child that idea of what is reading, right? So writing is when we usually express our own thoughts. What would you like to write? And they'll make a word and they'll express it graphically. Reading is actually interpreting somebody else's thoughts. So when I asked her, I said, can you tell me what I'm thinking of? Right? The thought is mine. I have written it down. So if I was thinking of lid, then I wrote it down. Now, Beena had to be able to read this word. So what did she need to know for this? She needed to know the sounds, right? She had to be able to recognize the symbol for each sound, right? That L-I-D, or which makes the sounds, right? She had to be able to fuse them together. So, lid. And when she fused them together, they would make a word that should now have meaning for her, right? Because it meant something to her, she could associate it with the object. So that whole process of being able to interpret the thought that I had and actually associated with something that is commonly used in the environment was the task that she's simply trying to do right now. And in this way, we start that process of where we have then a whole box of slips, which the words are now written, like, for example, gift. Thing. So the children can work with this activity on their own without the adult once we've given the initial presentation, and they will read the word gift, and then they will place it down. So they work independently with these activities. Sometimes they will choose to write down the words that they've read, because many of them have started writing. So they would often come home. Usually, your child is doing object box when they come home with a whole lot of these slips. They'll suddenly come home Monday with these slips written by us, and it's not their handwriting. And then that's their first indication that they've probably been introduced to this activity. And then, of course, we have the object box too, and things which have the phonogram sounds. So slowly they will be able to learn all of those things. So 4.5, it just depends when the child is ready. So there are some children who started quite early, with some it may start even only at 5. Just depending on the child, their health, how regular they've been at school, how motivated they've been. Because there are a lot of children who still, I think, like to work with a lot of sensorial material and practical life material till quite late before they start. So their vocabulary may be excellent. They may be speaking really well and expressing themselves really well, but they don't have, like with many of the boys, they want to run around and play around still. So they don't have that focus to be able to sit. So they know that they need to work with a lot more sensorial and practical life material to develop that concentration before they master this. But eventually everyone gets to this phase of reading and writing within the time is spent at the primary. Now, once they are able to read words, we give them a lot of reading material. So these are some of the simple reading books. This is a read. Oh, it's gone.
No, it's
Okay.
Yeah. Somebody wants to ask a question.
We can take questions.
Yeah. Gina, we'll take your question later. Is it okay?
Yes, Meena auntie.
All right. So this is the reading booklet that we have. So this is basically, you have an illustration on one side and we have the word written on the other side. So when we introduce this activity, we cover this page, or we fold this page sometimes, and we ask the child to actually sound out these words. So the child will say, man. They follow it the same way as they've done the object box, where they try to say it still faster. They fuse the word together, and then they can check it with the illustration. Right? So the child now keeps doing this. They read these little books. And what happens is that the child gets so much confidence, because if they feel that I've been able to read a full book by myself, they start to enjoy reading, right? Because otherwise at home, we often have books that are much longer. So whether it's your Topsy and Tim or your Golgappu books, or however simple they may be, it sometimes is too much when they're learning. This is simple. They read the word, they check it with the picture, and the child gets so much confidence. And they say, I read a whole book. We also have booklets. This is the reading booklet too, which again has phonetic words, but they have 2 pictures. So sometimes, the child doesn't just guess always, but we cover it and we say, okay, they'll read one word and then try and associate it. And this is reading booklet 3, which has the phonogram sounds as well, like a word like this, for eat, when they've done the green sound. So bear, fish, which has the sh sound, right? So I think it's glistening too much. So this is part of their reading material. And of course, once they start reading, they are going to be reading sentences. There's a lot more things that what we do with things like puzzle words, which are words that they have to master or learn by heart. Like, for example, she or the or he. Now, these are words that you can't just sound out phonetically, but they come very often in a sentence, and the child has to learn them by heart. So those are, like more like your sight word. So here they refer to them as puzzle words. So in case they are using those, say something like puzzle words at home, it's usually the sight words that they're reading. And we put them examples of using them in a sentence as well. Now, this is another activity that we have, which is the reading folders. So again, using the phonogram sounds, the guy had mentioned that the phonograms we use on a green board. The letters, of course, with sandpaper again. So the child can trace it. So this sound is I. So the E and A together make an I sound. So if you say E is different and A is different, but together the sound is I. So these are the different ways in which we can say I hope those now not on Zoom can say it. So, for example, this is I at the IE sound. Yeah. This is also I sound in certain cases. This is also an I sound. This is also an I sound. And this is also an I sound where if you have a letter in between, right? I'll explain it to you as I read out some of the words that we have. So you can figure it out. So to the child, we are saying that these look different. These are all different ways that we may write out that sound, but they all say the same sound. They all make the same sound I. Okay, for example, now the child will match the booklet with the slip, a word like pie. So which is spelled as P-I-E. So this I sound is in a word like pie, fried, cried, for example, right? So this is in words like these, the I sound, when you get I and E together, it makes that sound I. Now, it can also be spelled like this, with a Y. So a word like cry, where the Y is now pronounced as I. Cry. So R. But we don't say Y, we'll say I. Y. Then when it's just an I sound, so a word like mild, mind, hind, wild, right? They're all an I sound. IGH also makes an I sound, like night, fight, sight, high. And then you have words which we call it a special sound. We usually introduce it separately and we say this is a special one because you can have a letter in the middle. So stride. So if I don't have this, it'll make the child will read as strid. But when I have the A at the end, it becomes an I sound. So stride, ride, rid and ride. Right? If I don't have the A at the end, id is rid. But when I have this letter, it becomes ride. So in this way, like a lot of parents, I know whenever we have exhibitions, workshops, or when people visit the school, many of you have done the school visit for you. They keep asking us as to, how would children learn, or do they actually memorize a lot of letters? Because schools do a lot of sight words, a lot of classes, phonetic classes that go on as well. But when they spend time in a Montessori environment, if they are here till the age of 6, if they complete the primary program, they're exposed to so much vocabulary. And English, especially as a language, is not phonetic. So you cannot mug up all of these sounds. There are so many different, something like this, if you actually think about it.
Yeah.
Or even a letter like A, right? Like A and I together. When they say, why don't you do alphabets like A, B, C, D? But for us, that sound A could be AI as in tail, AY as in bay, EIGH like nay, right? So there are so many different ways that we can actually make that same sound. So when children spend time here and they're exposed to a lot of this material, they remember that key sound. So they will remember the IE and they know that, okay, all these can say the same sound. They look different, which is even in our presentation. They look different, but they all say the same sound. So that is something that children can really, I feel, learn beautifully. Language is an amazing, I think language and sensorial were always my favorites in although all the material is really beautiful. I need this. Yeah.
What was that called?
Reading folders.
Reading.
Reading folders.
It comes much later.
Okay. So now we will move on to, I'm just going to show you an example of one activity in grammar. Okay. So this is a presentation. Now the child, remember, has started reading. Okay. They're able to read simple sentences, simple words. And we want to introduce them language, or rather the reading has three parts. So the first part is simply mechanical reading, where the child just knows how to make the sounds and you can read any word probably, but you don't necessarily understand the word, right? Like I may be able to read Hindi, but you ask me the meaning of some of the things and I'm quite clueless, right? So with different languages. So that is your mechanical reading. Now you have the next part, which is interpretive reading. So what Veena did when we did the object box, where she was able to associate that word with an object, like you've been able to interpret what that word is. Now the last part of language is what we call appreciative reading, where now you've learned how to read, but you want to appreciate language in a deeper manner. So the style, the structure of the language, like what is that function of that word? Like, is it a verb? Is it an adjective? Is it a figure of speech? What is a phrase? Why does poetry have certain style or structure or rhythm? Songs, when you actually appreciate it in a deeper sense. So that is an important part also of our language material, and we start it right from the primary itself. So one of the activities what I'm going to show you today is the adjective. Now we usually have a farm in the environment, or it could be a doll's house or anything, but basically something that has relevance to the society or culture that we live in, and it has lots of different objects in it. So usually I've just brought a few objects down. So we have a farm because I think children at this stage love animals, most of them. And I will tell the child, okay, again, I'm thinking of one of these, right? I'll keep them standing so that the people on Zoom can see. So we have all these objects. So there are some cows and horses basically that I have here today. I'm going to give you a clue. So I have written in cursive script, the horse. Okay. So I've written the word the horse and I'm giving it to the child to read.
The horse.
Could you get it for me from the farm? So now she's got me this horse, okay, which is the brown horse. Yes, this is a horse, but this is not the one I was thinking of. I'm going to give you a clue. So I'll put this back. And now, so in colored pencil, I'm writing. I'm writing the word black. Okay, I've written the word black. So now Veena has to read it, or the child reads it.
Black.
Black. So could you get it for me from the farm? Yes. She's got the black horse.
The horse black.
So now she's reading it like this. Okay. The horse black. Isn't it funny? Can we say it like this?
Black the horse. No.
No. Does it sound right?
No.
Okay. So see what we are going to do. So now I'm going to cut up this strip, which has the horse. Okay. Can we say this?
Black the horse.
No. Can we say it?
Horse, black, no.
No.
The black horse.
Does it sound right?
Yes.
So this was just a game where we transpose, so the child kind of gets the correct structure of the language as well. Okay, and now we have symbols to represent what each word actually does in the sentence. So, Pina, could you tell me which is the word that told you what I wanted? Horse. So she's pointed out to horse, which is the noun. We are going to place this symbol over the word that told us what we wanted. Okay, this told us what I wanted. So that's the big black triangle, which is our symbol for the noun. Which is the word that told you what kind of horse I wanted? Black. So we are going to place this dark blue triangle, the medium dark blue triangle over the word black. And this told us what kind of horse I wanted. Which is the word that told you that I wanted only one of this kind of horse? So for this word, we are going to place this tiny blue triangle, the light blue triangle. And this word told us that I wanted only one of this kind of horse. So if, for those who are on Zoom, so this is how it looks like to the child, right? They will see it in this manner. The black horse, and these are simply symbols for the noun, the adjective, and the article. So the article is like a or the, which tells us that I want, like if there are many, for example, horses, then it'd be a horse, a horse, a horse. This is the horse. This is one that I've chosen. Black told us what kind of. The adjective is a describing word. And the noun, of course, is a name, place, animal thing that we have. So the horse, right? So in this manner, we introduce all the parts of grammar, like a lot of grammar activities. So we have the verb, then they will eventually do the adverb, you know, you have the adjective, you have the conjunction, words that join, prepositions, things like that. And they slowly learn all parts of speech, like basic parts. They're given symbols right now, so they may not always say, they know it because there's a box, like the article box, the logical adjective game or something like that. They have probably picked up on the names, but sometimes they may just associate it with the triangles. But what happens is when they're used to framing a sentence and these form like a visual memory for them, they realize when they are constructing a sentence, when they make mistakes, it's just easier for them to kind of understand. And of course, when they move on, whether they go to regular schools or our own elementary program, they will build up on all of this. But it gives them a very nice exposure at a very young age to find things that are interesting to do with the language. They're simple sentences. There's no pressure to write, or they're not being tested in any way. They don't have exams at Montessori, but at the same time, they're being given so much, and it's such a rich environment with language. They start labeling things in the environment. So they even want to make words like red rods or something, and then they can place just those triangles. So what kind of rods? Red rods, or the long rods, or things like that. So there's so much material within the space itself that they can build on. And of course, once they start writing, they do a lot more like comprehension cards and other things that they will learn. This rich exposure to everything that they do. I'll take questions in a bit, but we also, of course, have a lot of books and things. The teachers can also send you a list of books that we have in the class. We like to focus on real stories or things that actually happen in the environment. We don't have books where there are animals talking or, cartoon pictures. Really, we try to have them visually more looking like humans or like normal characters, even though they are in illustration form. Also at this age, I think these things help because children have a lot of questions that are unanswered. And at the same time, because they're building their vocabulary, they don't necessarily know how to express themselves in English. So when you have books like I find that's where books like Topsy and Tim really help, go to the dentist or start school. So a lot of their anxieties, a lot of their queries that they have are resolved when we read books like these to them. When it's very realistic, they are able to be grounded in reality. And when it answers those questions, it gives them a lot of satisfaction and a lot of motivation to be able to speak and to even question the environment around them. So it's very important that you have a lot of these good books with you. And of course, encyclopedias and things are very, very helpful as they get older and at a later stage. If there are any questions about the material, I'll take them first. I think
Yeah.
with the parents here or those on Zoom.
What are these, like, apart from Foxy and then which are other books which we can buy that can be with this?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I think many of the teachers the class teachers have made a list of books that either we have in the environment or books they've come across that are good. And usually we do sometimes send it to you so we can try and do
Yes.
that. Just send you a list of books and then of course build up on those. Once you've read those,
Yeah.
you figure out the kind of
Yes.
stories that are, and then you can choose. And please let us know if you find something good in the market itself that you feel would be helpful for us to add into the classroom.
I'll
Yes.
stop recording and then we can ask
Yes.
answers. I mean, questions.
By Walt. Oh, sorry. Someone came knocking at my wee small door. Someone came knocking. I'm sure. I listened. I opened. I looked to left and right. But not there was a stirring in the still, dark night. Only the busy beetle tapping on the wall. Only from the forest the screech owl's call. Only the cricket whistling while the dew drops fall. So I know not who came knocking at all. So usually when when I introduce the poem to the class, the children were like, and then they started thinking. I said, what do you think happened? And someone said, I think someone knocked and ran away, or maybe it was just the wind, or maybe it was something. And but the fact that language can come alive is so beautiful. I mean, if you think of it in this way, there are just 26 letters of the alphabet, and the thousands or millions of books that have actually been written with just that, is something that is really fascinating. So please, as parents and as educationists, even for the teachers, whoever listen into this, writing and reading shouldn't be seen as just a skill. It shouldn't be that your focus is only on academics and they have to get into this school and that school. And there is so much pleasure in language, in books, in being able to communicate. I mean, the fact that, a child can, we have so many stories, like things that when we look at, cards, now we've stopped sending physical cards to people. Everything is on email. But if we've stored a letter like that, maybe was written by our grandmother or something that we had a birthday card, it's so beautiful to actually see and treasure, and sometimes to even read the language that was used in those days. So, sometimes when our parents, when children interact with their grandparents, there's such lovely language that they kind of pick up. So like, I remember my son, there are words that I don't always use at home. And my son one day wanted to he used to love wearing a tie to school when he was in the primary especially, and he was all neatly dressed. And I said, Dylan, today I think you're going to do this at school. You have gymnastics, so the tie would probably come in the way. Why don't you just wear a t-shirt? So he's saying, no, mama. Then grandma will just think I'm going around like a scruffy little boy. And that's exactly the words that my mother would use at home. So I said, oh, okay. So he went, in his tie. But I'm just saying, sometimes with a lot of our parents at home, so whether the language at home is Hindi or any language that you learn, our parents often speak it really well, right? Because they've been brought up in that environment. And no matter what the language, if it's something that's rich, it's, imbibes a lot of the culture that was used. I think it's very good for the children to pick that up. And language definitely supports intelligence. And if the child is given an opportunity to speak, it will really help. Like, I love chatting. You probably see me chatting with the kids, making a lot of noise in the environment. But I love the responses that children give, because also I find that for many children, and even in the classroom, if we all know a lot of words. Like, I may be an avid reader, but the amount of books I read, and I don't always use those words in my day-to-day vocabulary, right? We learn so much, but we don't, there's no one to kind of chat about it with or talk to about it with. So when we introduce new words to the children, like the names of geometric insets. Okay, this is a pentagon. Now this is, something like this. This is a rosette. And then when we actually are able to apply it in the classroom and say, can you find this for me? Or doesn't this look like a rosette when something is wrapped up beautifully in a gift form or something? And then when the children actually use that language or that vocabulary, they are able to comprehend it so much better. They're able to understand that, and then they are more motivated to use these bigger words in sentences or in their normal parts of speech. Any more questions? Yes.
I had one.
She's been.
Yeah, sorry. Yes.
Yes, Gina.
Sorry, I just have to drop off for I'm taking this call from work. So, Beena aunty and Tanya, first of all, thank you so much for this wonderful talk. It really helps to kind of support it. Just a question. I have the sounds page that you guys sent on the email, and it says SH as in push. So, what is the right time to introduce the letters that are like SH, CH, A, O? What is the right time to introduce the kids with that, and how, like, they're ending, like, in case of push, SH comes at the end. So is that okay if we are picking up a letter which is coming at the end while teaching them? Like, what is the concept around that? That is a bit confusing me as well. That's why the
Initially,
question.
getting it as the first sound is like when they say a word like ship, for example, right? So ship,
Mm-hmm.
shelf, things like that. It's probably easier for them to associate it with. We do it with the
Okay.
identify game. So as I said, we focus first. We are always asking the child about the first sound. And then as
Okay.
practice with the activity, we are asking them for the last sound and then the sounds they hear in the middle. But because they're sitting in a mixed age group, they are
Mm-hmm.
aware of these things much faster.
Got it.
We
So if I'm doing it at home, it makes sense to give the first sound. First sound. That would make more sense.
Yeah, so you can, when you first play the game, always do the first sound. I think, like, for example, and do it with simple things like I spy something with my little eye, something on my hand that starts with watch.
Got it.
Remember, the child should have been introduced to the object first before you give them the sound. So if I'm saying
Yes.
watch, and now I'm saying I spy with my little eye, something on my hand that starts with watch. Okay, so the child they should be objects that are familiar in the environment for the child to be able to recognize them. Remember, this is the stage where we are trying to motivate them. So we don't want them to keep, feeling like I can't do it, or I don't know, it's too difficult, it's too hard for me. So that is something you need to focus on. We do the phonograms actually much later. We do vowels and consonants first and then these other sounds. But of course, their auditory sense is pretty
Okay.
good. When we do the I Spy game, they're just saying the sound. They're not associating with the way the letter is written. They don't need the recognition of the symbols as yet. I hope that
So all the phonograms are listed here in the sheet, right?
yes.
These are it, the phonograms, or there are more? Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Phonograms was one part that really I was struggling with. So
Okay. And are you from the Lower Parel branch or Crystal or Neil Nandini?
no, from Bombay. I'm Yevika's mom from Faith.
Okay, from Faith. So in case any
Yevika's mom from
uh,
Faith.
in case any of you find it really hard and you want to take a separate appointment with me and sit and understand the sounds, please feel free to do that. I'm working shorter hours, but I'm there at the office between singing sessions. So I'm more than happy to help you out with sounds if you have any difficulty.
Some people want.
Great. Thank you so much.
letters. It's really not necessary to buy sandpaper letters and try to do it at home. In case if you don't get it right, it will not be doing justice to
Yes,
your child.
yes.
It will confuse the child even more.
And also sometimes what happens is that the minute you have it at home, the child
Yeah.
doesn't want to work with it
Lose
at school.
interest.
So it's always better that we do it because we have a lot of material that connects the sandpaper letters. It's, with the movable alphabet, it's in that proportion. Also, different dealers don't often sell the letters in the right way. Some of them have a mix of print. So it's always better that you get it from us.
To find the material.
No,
And
please.
going to what you are doing. I'm happy to let the teachers,
Yeah.
the aunties do what they're doing. But at home with primary kids, with toddlers, we can use our vocabulary, like you mentioned, peeling an orange, all of that. But with the primary kids, what do we do?
No, also when they do a lot of household chores,
Right.
water, I mean, they will have so much more to describe anything.
Yeah.
When they're doing these activities. So when they, Montessori children, when they have to write an essay, they have so much to write about, because how to clean a table, how to build a pin tower, how to do a flower arrangement. There's so many things they can write about if they have to just sit down to write or even talk about something. I mean, if the child wants to describe that I did a flower arrangement, I mean, there's so much more I mean, they just need to express what they did.
Be asking questions.
Asking or explaining when while doing whatever you are doing, if you are just explaining, oh, see, I'm going to make this cake batter. Let's do this. Let's involving the child in everything that we do is really helpful to develop very good language.
Like
and
a physical experience of something is really good.
Are very, very
And
essential.
I think one of the workshops here only I attended last year, that more than asking what helps is you model or you describe your day.
Yes.
Then they'll see you describe, they want to describe their day. Instead of saying, what did you do at school?
Yeah.
You say, this is what I did in the house today when you were away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they share what.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a lovely day and always positive. I mean, it's just simple, small things that I was going to the market and I met this one. It was so nice to see her. Or I saw a little kitten. Just small things. They start appreciating really small things, small pleasures.
About the tracing, now that I know that you all are doing this, because what Dua has started doing is when we read books and it's small, but she'll like I, E, and she's tracing. And I asked her, what are you doing? She's like, I'm tracing. So I
Tracing.
knew something, but now I know it's this. What
So
she
the
was
purpose
doing.
of showing you all the material is just to explain that these are the things happening.
Yeah.
What they are telling us.
Yeah.
Yes, so we don't
Today I
expect.
realized chalky is this.
Yeah.
I mean, chalky hurt.
Yeah.
Chalky hurt you. I didn't understand now. I need some tape.
Yeah.
And they clean it.
Yes, they wash those. So this, I mean, they scribble on
They
it
wash it.
and then they say, oh, it's very dirty. Now I need to wash it. And
Yeah.
See this book. Very dirty.
very dirty, you
Yeah.
need to clean it and then scrub, scrub, scrub. So if you, I mean, in a regular school, they'll be asked to write straight lines, pages and pages. And it really doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
They feel, why should I do it? And if you just tell them, oh, that this chalky is dirty, why don't you clean it? They will be at it for 30 minutes. And doing all the straight lines, all the bouncy patterns, or whatever,
everything.
all kinds of patterns. And with deep concentration, with so much fun. So they are actually writing.
Task that we just let them.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Not then leave it somebody else.
No,
No.
never.
That's
never.
okay.
So right from the beginning, from the time they are really small toddlers, involving them to pick up the mess. So always not have their toys in a basket. They're just dumped. Have maybe just 5 things. But if you don't have a shelf, just maybe spread a sheet like this, a long one, and place them at a distance. The puzzle should be full, not dumped in a box or basket. Everything should be how it should be looking.
But if my son is into cars, that's making 5 cars.
Yeah, maybe on a tray, you can place 5 cars, but neatly organized. Everything should be, because they are also building their inner internal order. And that internal order depends on external order. So if everything is neatly organized, their internal order, it's like having a lovely filing system. So how the filing system, if you can access anything very easily, retrieve information whenever you, I mean, if I've filed everything together, that's why we say that one person, one language. So if I'm speaking 5 languages simultaneously, I'm able to speak 5 languages, but I don't speak in 5 languages while talking to my child. So I have to stick to one language.
It's challenging.
It is challenging, especially, absolutely.
Around that, so sometimes my daughter mixes, while saying expression, mixes words. Right?
Yes,
Hindi,
yes.
Marathi,
Hmm.
English, everything is a constant.
Yeah.
So that's so
We
don't
don't
tell her
correct.
anything.
We don't correct.
But at times maybe I use that language ka word to repeat, just as a
Yes, that's right.
Yes, yes.
So if the child is saying something,
I
or
give an
2,
example,
3
right?
languages.
मैं बसता हूँ,
मैं?
बसता हूँ, sitting down.
Yeah, oh, you were sitting down.
Something
Yeah,
like that.
that's just, we just say the right thing.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
Yes. So now there's a lot of stuff at home that has alphabets.
Okay.
There's one stand tower with A, B, C, D and pictures behind it. What I understood today is that we don't use the alphabet A, B, C, D
Yes.
at all.
The capitals we don't do, we do it much later, around 5 years of age.
Okay.
One is all the books, anywhere you will see, it's all written in small letters.
Right.
So they'll come to reading very easily when they, and we also do the difficult thing first.
Yeah.
Like Tanya said, you know, the
Cursive, yeah.
cursive letters. And from cursive, if they've done cursive, they can easily read normal print, the small letters.
Sure.
And so capitals, no books except the hoardings.
Not the books, you know, those not.
I understand.
Yes.
No, I understand. But don't introduce, don't say the names of the letters.
Yes.
Parents at all do these phonetics.
See, because what happens is that no. See,
No,
the
I
phonetic
can
sound.
say all the time.
Like you may have a puzzle at home, for
Maybe
example,
the sound
which has the capital letter A,
Yes.
right? And then there's a